Welcome to Craigoala, the Koala Entertainment Halo podcast. My name is Anthony Nicolosi. I'm joined with our usual co-host.
Got your potatoes.
But today, we have a super special guest, our good friend, Brian from the Sacred Icon Halo podcast.
So much buildup. Am I really that special?
Super special, Brian. Brian came to Colorado for a trip in Aspen, I want to say, right? I think.
It was Estes Park, technically.
Estes Park. Last year, right? It hasn't been
Yep.
longer than that. Jeez, time flies.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough to be able to arrange a meetup for pizza. That was, first of all, that pizza wasn't that bad. I'm not even that much of a pizza guy. The pizza was pretty good.
And I gave you pie.
And I was going to say, the pie was probably better. Probably even better. Like, it was good.
It was like an almost $40 pie. So I gave you like $20 worth of that $40 pie.
It was good. Yeah, it kind of looked like $30. You're selling yourself short. You gave me a nice chunk of that pie. It was good stuff. So anyway, Brian runs the Sacred Icon Halo podcast. Brian, do you want to give us a little bit of a breakdown? First of all, if you're watching right now, you can see Brian's got a pretty sweet shirt on right now. You guys, very nice minimalist logo shirt. Some of you guys have asked me about that white shirt that I wear with the black logo. That's like, it's a hand. It's a Spartan armor hand, a Mjolnir armor hand grabbing a sacred icon. Obviously, the Halo Sacred Icon. That is the logo of the Sacred Icon Halo podcast. That's who I'm talking to. Unfortunately, it is literally in the washing bin, if you will, right now. So I don't have it, but you will frequently catch me wearing it. This is Brian from said Sacred Icon Halo. Do you want to give us a little bit of a breakdown of how you fell in love with Halo and why you started Sacred Icon and how that all kind of happened?
Yeah. Let's see. So people listening to the podcast have probably heard variations of this story many times. But so when Halo first came out, Combat Evolved, I was 9 years old. And so I was a big Nintendo fanboy, and my immediate reaction to Halo being popular was, it probably isn't good. People just like it because it's Microsoft, and I'm not interested. So I never really played the first one. I watched people play it, but I never really played it. And then I went to a friend's house the Christmas right after Halo 2 came out. So Halo 2 came out in November 2004. So I was at a friend's house that Christmas, and I had a buddy who asked for an Xbox with Halo 2 just so he could have all three systems in his bedroom. He didn't actually care about Halo. He wasn't a Halo fan. He just wanted to have them all in his bedroom. So when I came over, he wasn't playing this new Xbox with Halo 2, and I was like, can I give that a shot? She's like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm not playing it on freaking Christmas Day. It's crazy. So I went and we hooked it up in the living room, and I started playing it, and immediately with just like the opening cutscene with the Arbiter and the Trial and the Prophets, and then, Chief and putting his armor on, I started playing. I was kind of intrigued, and I played Cairo Station, and I was like, this is pretty good. And then I got to Outskirts, and when I started introducing vehicles and like just the cutscenes and the Scorpion and just the Scarab that shows up in Metropolis, I was just absolutely just blown away. It was the best game I'd ever played. And then the funny thing is, as soon as it got to the Arbiter mission, I immediately noped out and replayed the Master Chief mission.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wouldn't even entertain it. And the thing is, I didn't have like what, established Halo fans had going into it, where they're like, I don't want to play as Arbiter. I'm a fan of the Chief. This was my first time playing it, but I think, and I've obviously now I love the Arbiter missions. I love the whole game, but I think at the time, if you think about the first mission with the Arbiter, it seems pretty kind of boring and plain compared to what you just came off of.
Right.
I mean, you just came off of playing as the Chief, with all these vehicles and
I was going to say it's Outskirts, right? That precedes that first Arbiter mission.
It's Outskirts and then Metropolis. They're actually two different missions.
Yep.
Like one. Yep. So yeah, you just kind of do all this bombastic stuff as Chief with like the Marines, and then you saw like giving the Covenant back their bomb cutscene and all this stuff. And then you get to the Arbiter, and it's like this really brown level, and you got to go in stealthy, and you don't even know the guy. So, but anyways, to make a long story short, I started begging my parents like every day for an Xbox. Eventually got one 8 months later, my birthday, and then that was my favorite game of all time, and it's been ever since. Obviously, was super stoked for Halo 3 and everything, and could go into all that. But as far as Sacred Icon goes, so it was 2019. I got married in June of 2019. And then it was like this really like pathetic type video game nerd thing you usually wouldn't want to tell people, but it was September 25th, Halo 3's anniversary.
Okay.
3 months after getting married, and I'm laying in bed with my wife before we go to sleep, and I'm feeling so emotional by Halo 3. I'm almost brought to tears with emotion, and it's like because not just the game, but series, my childhood, the hype of that. Like Halo 3 is the most I've ever been hyped for anything, still to this day.
The hype was crazy, though.
It was insane. I mean,
Yeah.
I just expected the world of it. So I was like, I got to figure out something to do with this passion. Not to mention, credit to Josh. Josh, my co-host Josh, for those of you who don't know, he's always credited me with being like the Halo hype man. Like, just he cannot even care about Halo, and I just get him like dying to
play.
dive into all the material. Yeah, so
because Josh is really into Star Wars, right?
Yeah, Josh's main thing is Star Wars. We kind of share the big three pillars. I think we share. We both love Star Wars, Middle Earth, and Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And Halo. But like, yeah, Josh's like interest in Halo kind of flirts in and out more than mine. Mine's kind of always mostly there. So after that like anniversary of Halo 3, I was like, I got all this hype, all this like passion. What am I going to do with it? So I started a Twitter account just as Brian, and I started making articles on just a free WordPress site. So I just had like Sacred Icon Halo.wordpress.com. Didn't even pay for it, and I would just write articles about my passion for Halo. And like 3 people read it, and it's like my brother Josh and like one other person, and I had like 25 followers on Twitter, and so I was just doing it to kind of let that out, but it didn't really gain any traction. And then one day, I think Josh mentioned it first about like, hey, we should maybe do a podcast sometime. And I was like, yeah, let me look into that. And then I looked into it, and I found out it was not as hard as I thought it was to start one. So we decided to start a podcast, and if you listen to the first episode, horrible audio quality. I'm not even talking about like OCD horrible audio quality. I'm just talking like we were using our cell phones with like iPhone headphones, and it was really bad. But the weird thing is, so I don't know if it was like a perfect storm or if we literally did something really right, but I had my Brian Twitter with like 25 followers. I changed the logo. I told my wife I had an idea for what I wanted our podcast to be called and what I wanted the logo to be. I said, I want it to be called Sacred Icon. That's what the Covenant called the index from the Halo games. And I was like, what I picture is Chief reaching out with his hand to grab the index, but the image is right before he's grabbed it. And my wife just drew up what is our logo right now.
That's a solid one.
I just like this. Yeah, so I threw that up there. And so I had that logo. Sacred Icon was the name. Sacred Icon Halo. And we put out that first episode. And our first episode of our podcast got like 40 downloads. The first one ever.
That's really good.
And it was horrible audio quality. And then, the thing is, like, we kind of maintained like 30, 40 for like a couple episodes. But then I kind of struck gold with, on the Twitter, I asked a question, like a really well-worded question. I think the first question I asked was like, 343 is seeing your passion for Halo. They love it, and they've invited you into the studio to make one decision for Halo Infinite, and whatever you say goes. And with like, I had like less than 100 followers, and it got like 400 or 500 likes and comments and replies and retweets. And I saw it, and I was like, man, people kind of like this.
Right.
So I'm gonna kind of roll with this. So I just started posting 1 or 2 questions just like that every day. Really well worded, high quality, like, HD images. I didn't just pull off like Google search random stuff, and it just kept happening. Just kept getting. And then the thing is, we kept getting followers, and just it kept going up and up and up. And I think by like not even the 5th episode of the podcast, we had over 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
It just took off, and then, then the we just plugged the podcast through the Twitter, and then we had hundreds of listeners. So.
Yeah, the topic actually that we wanted to talk about today surrounding like Halo fandoms in general and stuff is definitely going to involve Twitter. One thing about your guys' existence that I find almost ironic to a certain extent, because the way I've told this story, I think on the podcast where I joined you guys. By the way, yeah, if you're listening to this, I joined Brian on the Sacred Icon Halo podcast. I want to say it's episode 25. And we had a good time. That was a good one. And I think I discussed this, but I saw you guys initially on Twitter. And I remember my general impression was like, oh, look, somebody who likes Halo, like who's positive about Halo, which is, like I said, related to the topic we'll talk about today. And started listening to you guys from that angle. And yeah, I really enjoy the conversations. They're, like I said, I feel like you guys have an optimistic perspective on the conversations, an optimistic and like positive perspective on the conversations you have around Halo, whatever they may be. And that was appreciative. Also in the Discord, joined the Discord and all that stuff. A positive, I think, is the way. Positivity, optimism, I think, are words that people associate to the Sacred Icon Halo messaging. And part of the reason, quite honestly, like part of the reason we started Craigoala was we were talking to each other and we were like, well, Sacred Icon Halo are happy and enthusiastic about Halo, but we don't really see a ton of that in the podcast space, the Halo podcast space. It's maybe just more like, not that they're all negative. Like I'm trying to think, Podcast Evolved and some of those guys, they're positive. They're super positive. I just think we're kind of like savages. We're like the bros that you invite over to play Halo. We're not really. There's some bad words here and there, and it's the conversation is really casual, and it just seems like everybody else in the Halo community is much more civilized than we are. So we filled that niche right there a little bit.
There you go. I appreciate you saying that, and I think the cool thing about and I told Josh this from the beginning. I'm like, Podcast Evolved, they have like a really good. They're kind of the way I look at them is they're very official in the way they podcast. They're kind of formatted and they have a lot of structure, and I think that makes them a very good Halo podcast, and that gives them their space. And so when me and Josh started, I was like, I feel like we're kind of like the in a sense, like you said with you guys, like two dudes talking about Halo, and then we've actually had people tell us we're like therapy for Halo. We discussed our feelings about Halo a lot.
No, right.
So yeah, I think it's great that you guys are here doing more positive stuff. And the thing is, it's another thing I'm surprised how much people have noticed is we try to be nice and not cuss and be and stuff like that, but it slips from us sometimes. And Josh more than I think you would admit.
Right.
But I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is you guys are a Halo podcast where you sit down in a nice, that fancy house I just told you we picked up that trampoline. They had, I'm not even shitting you, dude. They had 5 living rooms, okay? It was one of these big, huge mansion houses. And I imagine, the way I would describe it is Sacred Icon Halo is sitting in one of these real nice living rooms with the nice chairs, the elaborate wood design with a fireplace, and we have Doritos on our controller, and the fire is from Mateusz accidentally lighting something with his lighter when he instead of his cigarette, kind of a thing. We're just a mess over here.
Maybe we just edit the Doritos out better.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe. Anyway, so. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. I think we've had recent conversations for the people in our community who are listening to this now or in the future. We've had conversations recently on the Coffee with Bramoala morning podcast about they'll ask questions about trying to start making content or putting content out there, streaming, making music, blah blah. And one thing that I'm always one thing I always say is like just like the one of the most important things to do is just do it. Like there's some amount of learning that you can only get doing it, in my opinion. Like you can sort of anticipate only so much, but there's there's that saying like everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Like you need to get out there and like get punched in the mouth to know how you need to adjust from getting punched in the mouth. You can't just punch a punching bag the whole time. You eventually got to go and fight somebody, to use that analogy. You don't actually fight people when making content.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think because like for instance, like whenever in the past, whenever I thought about starting a podcast or YouTube or whatever it is, you always want to have all the details down before you start. You want to have the perfect mic, perfect webcam, just everything ready to go. You want to have your artwork done. You want to have all this stuff established. But if you try to do that, you almost always fail, because I've seen people who have all the snazzy stuff immediately and no one cares to listen to them. And then I've seen people who get on there with their horrible quality mic and barely anything to show, but what they're passionate and what they're talking about is interesting.
Right.
And it blows up,
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I'm actually, I get caught in that sometimes too, like where I want things to, a lot of times I want things to be good and nice. I'll try. One thing that I've been challenging myself to do this year is like make a piece of music related content once a week. And that's helped push me to like not spend so much time polishing or like overthinking and overworking it. Like, yeah, it's a little off time. There's like the metronome was like, I moved the clip in the wrong place. So when I recorded it, the metronome was a little screwy and blah, blah, blah. I want to go back and record it, but it's like, no, just go. What the learning is, don't do that next time for the metronome. Put the content out, get feedback for the other part of it that was fine or whatever. And so anyway, that's a cool conversation. Potatoes, did you want to say how do you find the Sacred Icon Halo? Because I mean, I'm sure I told you about Sacred Icon Halo, but why do you keep listening to him is probably the more important question, because I don't force him to listen to Sacred Icon Halo.
Yeah. So basically it's just like one day, well, I was going to work every day and I was listening to music. And then I was just like, I should start listening to podcasts. So I messaged Anthony. I was like, you have any good Halo podcasts for me? And there was like 5 of them. And for some reason, it was your guys' logo, the Sacred Icon logo. I was like, that's a sick logo. So I clicked on you guys, started listening to you guys. I was like, damn, like, they're so, like, every time you listen to someone talk about Halo, it's basically they're just like, oh, I want 343 to do this. I want 343 to do this. And it's just like, oh, they screwed up here. And then, but you guys were like pointing out the good in the podcast, like not in the podcast, in the games and like everything about Halo. And it just was like, yeah, I would so much rather listen to someone pointing out the good things in Halo than pointing out the shit things that everyone already knows about. So like that's basically how I found them.
I really appreciate that, man. I agree with you. It's actually funny because I think on the last podcast, Alex said that he was like, good criticism is finding the things you like in what's already out there, not trying to create your version of it. You know what I mean? Because the things you don't like, those come to the surface really quick. Everybody knows it. Like,
right.
Yeah.
If I say Halo 5 story, everyone already knows the whole conversation. There's nothing left to say. But if you can take what's there and find the things you like, rather than go, in my version of Halo 5, this would have happened. It's not really helpful or healthy because it's hard for you to move on past that when you're like wishing you had made it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something we try and cover in quality time as well. I think that this is not unique to the Halo fandom in particular, but it's really impossible to perceive the complexity of making these things, making these games, and the human dynamic behind it. I was actually just talking to a AAA developer on Twitter, and they were feeling creatively burned out, and we were talking about that a little bit. Like that in itself is a whole element that like. A group of creative people can only like put their heart and soul into something for so long. After the freaking 70-second iteration of that chunk of that level, you're freaking sick of that part of that level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't want to see that damn corner one more time. Like, and you just have to wrap it up, and you need to keep going because there's a deadline, and the E3 build is I don't know when, blah blah blah. And like there are humans who make this thing, you know, and that's I think the dynamics of that are a process loss. Of course, there's always things like Alex was saying, and I agree. Constructive criticism is always great to have. I think that's all. I think honestly, like developers really would love to know what we don't like in a constructive way. Like they'd love to make it better. They're not actively trying to make a game we all hate. So yeah, I agree.
Well, I think that's like that's something we touched on in the last episode with Alex too. Was maybe a year before Halo 5 came out, the team might have realized this thing we have going on with Cortana, it's not really working the way we'd hope.
Right.
It's not really landing. But with a year left till release,
what are we gonna do?
How much change can you make? And I think that's one thing we don't give credit enough for like developers as well, as like some of the talent. You can see the talent when a game comes out, it's just great. But a lot of the talent is like how they got there. Like there could have been a horrible idea in Halo 3 or Halo 2 or whatever.
Right. There was sprinting in Halo 2.
There you go.
It's literally in the code. Like you can sprint.
But the way that developers steer into what they already have, like if you're a year out and you already have this, the way they steer into that and they land the plane can make all the difference of whether it's a good idea or not.
100%. What I'm actually looking for right now on the side is I know you actually saw this tweet as well because I saw you guys replied to it, but it was I think he's a level designer at 343 talk about wanting to show these levels that got cut from Halo 5. It was relatively recently. I don't know if that rings a bell for you, but he said that he hopes one day maybe he can show them or something, and that he's curious as to how the game would have come out. Just to allude to like the dynamics, there could have been 3 more levels that were 70% of the way done, 6 months out, and they just made the call like, let's polish what we have and not take a risk of the game being more. Because one thing I'll give Halo 5, it was like technically bugs wise and stuff was fantastic. I thought it was a very bug-free launch, bug-free game. You can argue, people do argue that they had a really limited scope. They didn't have a lot of like multiplayer playlists. But I remember being in the insider program and getting that survey of like, what should we prioritize? Do you want more playlists or do you want like polished playlists, like a more focused experience that's more polished? I can't remember the way they phrased it, and I voted for the less but more polished, which is what I feel like we got. There were only a few playlists. I think it was like 5 at launch, and it grew later. But the 5 that did launch worked really well. And anyway, so just to say, who knows? Like in the end of the day, you have priorities and shifting priorities. You have to make calls on stuff, and they go with what seems right at the time. And that's, unfortunately, I also feel like it's a little hard. Hard to defend yourself if you're them. Like, like you can't tell them there's literally some stuff you can't tell them. Like you can't tell them that the reason this one thing happened in the story this way was because we actually did have another cutscene, but it turns out that there was a legal dispute with the contract of one of the mocap actors who was in the scene, so we actually couldn't use that footage. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know if that happened.
It goes so many different ways. And then another angle I like to think about it too is like, no matter how bad a game was or perceived was by the fandom, you always end up generating new fans by that entry.
No, it's true.
So
there's a lot of those.
Yeah, I've met several people. I mean, a lot of people's favorite Halo is 4, and that was a 343 title. But I've actually met a few people who their favorite Halo in the whole series is 5. And for some, it's their favorite in the series for the story. I mean,
yeah, that's interesting one. That's an interesting one.
And the thing is, like, you come to find out the reasons why. Well, maybe that was their first Halo, so it means more to them, or maybe a particular character resonated with them. But the thing, it's like I think so important for fandoms, and this is kind of, I feel like I'm kind of taking your
saying. No, go for it.
taking a different direction as well is like, you know, try not to be like so protective of your fandom, because I know for so many of us, it's like, oh, Halo, that Halo was the OG trilogy with Bungie. I was there, you know, I know the names, Joe Staten, Marty O'Donnell, Jamie Grissom, all this stuff. But like, there's so many fans who are fans of Halo right now because of 4 or 5 or Reach or whatever. And that's really awesome. And they're going to go into the next game. And I want to stick around. It makes me think of like Star Wars and how there's some people that the prequels, that's their Star Wars. I mean, they're now 20-some years old. They grew up with those.
Dude, I like the prequels.
That's me. Yeah,
hey,
that's me.
I like the prequels personally.
No, I like the prequels as well. They're not my favorite of all 9, but I do enjoy them, and they're Josh's favorite. And my favorite's actually the sequel trilogy. Which
really, that's really interesting. Like I personally wasn't a big fan of it, but
that's most people right now. But I think once you see like 10, 15 years from now, you're gonna see the
yeah, I agree. I agree.
So
I think that's first of all, I wanted to pull back. Let me finish actually this train of thought before I show this tweet. But I agree with you. I don't want to phrase this from the perspective of like, man, people bitch about Halo. They're so stupid. Isn't that right, Brian? Like that's not what I'm trying to say. Where that passion comes from is so complicated. Like sometimes I've seen this on I remember on Waypoint there was once this person who made a post like around the Halo 4 era that I was like found interesting. Was they had grown, like they were like, they themselves admitted being like toxic original trilogy kind of fanboys, because there was that time in their life they played it with their dad, if I remember the story correctly. Long story short, there was a falling out in the parents' marriage, and there was a divorce that happened, all this stuff, and basically she can't like that. This person couldn't spend as much time with their dad anymore. So like Halo was strongly associated to these good memories of a person she really loved, you know what I mean? Like is really what it boiled down to. So when you defend those original trilogy, of course that's not like necessarily a healthy way to do it, and that's what she was saying, but that's where it's coming from, you know what I mean? It's something way more than the disc you put in, you know? It's the connections, it's that time frame. I know that I don't know, a lot of the people that I hear say some of that stuff, like who love the trilogy more, like I prefer the trilogy more, and I definitely think there's an amount of that, like that's just nostalgic, right? Of that era, that was a different time of life. That was, you know, an easier time of life. Like technically, I was 10, 14 or whatever. The sleepovers, the whatever, like all those things are associated to that. And then the reason why I like Halo 4, for example, and Halo 5 and Master Chief Collection, I would say even arguably more in some ways than the original trilogy, is because I experienced those with my wife. We had like, we played all those together and had a great time, blah, blah, blah. So it comes from, just to say, it's not black and white. It's not like dumb person gets mad and blah, blah, blah. These things always, these fandoms, like always, in my opinion, I feel always come from something somewhere deeper, some deeper connection when it gets crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think most people who claim to be, big Halo fans, whatever that means, there's real emotions attached to the games. It's not just literally the games itself. I think that what isn't beneficial is when, because this is something that it was kind of hard for me to resist when we started Sacred Icon, is you want to go on Twitter or wherever and be like, all this toxicity needs to die. The haters need to stop hating. But really, like, those words don't mean anything, and it kind of just fosters the
response. Yeah.
Because then people are just like, because then you get the people who you thought were toxic coming in and saying, yeah, the toxicity needs to stop. Like, bro, I thought you were the one.
Well, you're on my team?
Yeah, because nobody wants to be that guy. And I mean, of course, there's a couple people who just want to be assholes for sure. Like that, they make their way of being one. But most people don't think they're the toxic person. I just think it's just beneficial to lean into what's good and not discredit the way. it's so tough, man, because like I go back and forth on this line where there's one part of me that wants to be like, your feelings and emotions for Halo are real and they matter and you should have them. And there's another part of me who wants to go, it's just a game. It's just a game. And I don't say that disrespectfully because anybody listens to our podcast knows I love Halo. It means a lot to me, but it is just a game. So I think that's where like Josh and I get fatigued sometimes because we are so laser focused on Halo year round.
Right.
Just by nature of running Sacred Icon, it's like just the regurgitated topics, whether it's something old like Sprint or it's something new like the shader controversy.
Right. The coatings. Yep.
Yeah, the coatings. It's like the thing is, there's something worth talking about there. We're not saying like you shouldn't criticize 343 because when it's welcomed, go ahead. But like, it was like weeks later, and you'd see somebody dive bomb a Halo post about MCC getting a new season, and it would just be like, well, how much are coatings going to cost, assholes? Dude, like this. So it's like there's a level of like, yeah, this is important to you, I know, but then there's also like, this is all fake. It's just a game. I don't know. Like, ride that line. I
wonder also if the reason why it seems more bothersome, this like cynicism, if you will, is because it's actually been 6 years since a Halo game came out. Like, it's actually been a long time. So I feel like I don't know, prior to Halo 5, I convinced like 3 people to buy Xboxes from how hyped I got them on like the potential of the story, because like Halo 4 had happened, there was the Didact shit, there were the comics going on, the marketing was fucking awesome, the Hunt the Truth was so cool, and like, where's this going? Oh, Chief's the bad guy. Oh shit, what's Locke's motivations? The freaking I shoot you, you shoot me. I think this was part of the problem with the Halo 5 story when I played it, was my hype. I have never been so hyped for a Halo game. I'm not kidding. Like even more than the original trilogy. I was like, whoa, I was so excited. And why am I saying this? Oh, just to say that there was a period right there of like 2 or 3 years of just hype, man. Like nuggets being released. I don't know if you were paying, like if you would follow those cannon fodder. There was the guy who was it catalog? Like the catalog posts on Waypoint. Yeah. And oh shit, what does he mean? There was like an ARG element thing going on. It was just podcast. Yeah, it was just like awesome little nugget after awesome little nugget, and now it's been just more or less like, I would say at least 3 or 4 years of basically nothing. Like very like the maintenance content is what I call it. And although they did, like, for example, Shadows of Reach, there's been some stuff here and there. Renegades was a kick-ass book. I loved it. But I don't know. Yeah.
In my opinion, the Halo, whether it was intentional or not, I lean towards it was intentional. The series went on a hiatus is really what happened.
Right, I agree.
By the time Infinite comes out, it's going to have been 6 years. We're talking there's going to be 6-year-olds who are playing it for the first time. There's going to be 12-year-olds who played Halo 5 when they were 6. There's going to be people who are in high school who are now married with kids. The last time they played Halo was Halo 5. Yeah, exactly. So, it's a different time now for Halo. And I think too, with you talking about how dope the build up for Halo 5 was, I think I've gotten to the point where I tend to blame fandoms more than I do developers, or it doesn't have to be video games, developers or movie directors or whatever. I tend to blame the fans more often than not as I get older, because you can see how like priorities shift because of fan reaction. I don't have any insider info, but I just feel like Halo 5 wouldn't have looked exactly the way it did had Halo 4 been received well. Because I don't know if you've made this clear, Anthony, but like, even though you and I love Halo 4, it wasn't received well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like the multiplayer especially was received super poorly. The campaign,
but there was a fair amount of criticism for the campaign, actually.
Yeah, there was. I also feel like just the Halo content creator scene and everything like that was just much more in its infancy. At least the big creators now weren't as nearly as big at Halo 4, And so it was a little different. But I was surprised as the years went on of like, oh, people didn't like Halo 4. And to be honest, I can understand where like, you know, that one exposition heavy librarian cutscene like makes sense. If you didn't read the books like I did and were super hyped about every little freaking Forerunner nugget, I can see how that cutscene alone was just like, what the is going on? You know, like, so, yeah, it's true. Like, you're right. That Halo 4 was received negative. I do wonder, I agree. I was going into, like I was saying, the way I had built up hype amongst the people I knew was from the perspective of Halo 4 was great. The way I saw it was Halo 4 campaign, fantastic. Multiplayer, I personally had a lot of fun on the social modes, but especially the competitive, which is also something I really like, was really, honestly, it was bad, like from a competitive standpoint. It was just clearly not a priority is what it seemed like. Halo 5, what I was hoping was they're going to figure out the multiplayer, which in the end they did. I fucking loved the multiplayer. So good. So, and then, oh, well, they know campaign, so it's going to be like the perfect one. And unfortunately, I think the way a lot of people I felt, was that the campaign was weak and the multiplayer was strong. What I'm hoping now for Infinite is they put them both together and you've got a killer campaign and multiplayer.
Yeah, I'm actually on the same exact page as you. And it's funny because, and Josh has talked about this on our podcast, is when Josh played Halo 4 for the first time, he didn't like it. He didn't like Halo 4. Josh didn't. And then I started talking to him somewhere before MCC came out. I started talking to Josh about Halo, and I just went on this long nerd rant about Greg Bear's Forerunner trilogies and how all this ties in and all this. Josh got really interested in what I was saying, and he was like, okay, I think I need to give Halo 4 another chance. And he gave Halo 4 another chance, and he really started to come around to Halo 4. So, because like I was going, my mindset was Bungie put out these straight fire Halo games, and then this new developer 343 came in, and they put out a straight fire game in Halo 4. So I'm just like, I'm telling all my friends, and Josh is the prime example. I'm like, this game kicks ass, and like Halo 5 is going to kick ass too. You need to be a part of this, man. And like, I got Josh and other people on that hype train as well. And then we got to Halo 5, and it kind of stopped a lot of us in our tracks with how Halo 5 story ended up going.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Potatoes, yeah, jump in here.
Yeah. So I was just about to say, actually, the first time I played Halo 4 is I also didn't like the campaign, but I loved the multiplayer. Like, I would just play... Yeah, I would play the multiplayer like forever and ever. And then it wasn't until like 3 or 4 months after I went to my friend's house, and he didn't have Xbox Live. So we just played like at least 5 hours of just 1v1 Halo 4 in the, not whatever it's called.
Haven?
And then, in Haven, yeah. And so then after like 5 hours, we got really bored. So we were like, let's just play the campaign. So we played through the campaign, and I honestly, I don't know why I ever didn't like it. I loved it after I played it. It was the weirdest thing.
You played co-op with him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's I think there's something to do with the fact that it is so different. You know, Halo 4, like coming off Halo 3, Halo 4 is quite different. And I think whenever you see something that different the first time, it's kind of hard to accept.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But also, like, I have to play with my brother, and he's like really bad at these games. And he just like always sabotages me through the whole campaign. So doing that, like,
that could have been it. Yeah, that could have been it.
I countless memories of playing Halo 2 with my brother on co-op and being like, "Oops, my controller slipped. I accidentally melee you in the back."
Yeah, that happens nonstop.
Yeah, the best was on Legendary where you kill somebody and you both have to respawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh crap! I forgot about that. No, I'm not joking. All this really happened. We were on Metropolis crossing that bridge at the beginning, and I was playing with my youngest brother, who at the time was like 4 or something. And me and my other brother told him that if he jumped off the bridge into the water, it was a cheat code to get a special vehicle. And he literally did it without any hesitation. And then as soon as he died, he's like, "You lied to me."
Yeah, you gotta jump up. You gotta run up those cables on the side. You know what I'm
Don't
talking
have
about?
to.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
Metropolis was probably one of my favorite.
Metropolis with mods, like the modified settings and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
that's oh my gosh, that's so much
Did you
fun.
guys
I
ever
s-
properly get the scarab gun and the soccer ball?
Nope, I can't.
Yes,
I can't admit I got the soccer ball, but not the scarab gun. I mean, I have now that with on MCC, but
Okay.
not back in the day.
I was gonna say it's fun to get the scarab gun, but it's kind of annoying too.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah. And then you could put that skull on that gives you the scarab gun with every single gun you pick up. So you're just like going through the level, just blowing everything up. That was so much fun, killing your teammate.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this real quick before we move off of Halo 5 too far. I found the tweet. This will be up on the YouTube and everything, but this tweet comes from Kevin Schmidt, who is a senior designer at 343 Industries. He was the former senior / lead designer at LucasArts and etc. He says he has 2 pictures here that you guys probably know the movie references. I don't, because I am an uncultured swine. But he says, found these while cleaning out my old Halo 5 idea reference folder, and it reminded me of all the story beats and levels we had to cut. I might be biased because they were mine, but I always felt they were super interesting lore / story building levels, and I so wanted to do them. So, all I know,
I do remember this tweet now.
yeah, I don't know if you guys, anyway, I'm not sure exactly what these movies are that he's talking about that he wants to use as a reference, but oh man, I wonder so much what could have been. Now, I want to ask you though, before we start heading towards a wrap up here, the one thing that I find, like I said, ironic, is that you one of your guys is the main place, the main sacred icon epicenter of content is Twitter, in my opinion, outside of obviously the podcast, but I mean like on the social media sites. And Twitter, in my opinion, I've had a conversation with you recently about this, is like the most toxic of them all. I personally feel, and of course this could be related to the people I'm following. I just don't feel like I don't think it's necessarily the people I'm following who are toxic. I feel like it's like you said, there's a new Halo post and it's the replies. Like you see like the whole community replying to it. It's the Reddit sometimes, like things are turning it. I feel like Reddit's better personally. I mean, they can freak out every now and then, but whatever. Twitter, I don't know. I feel like maybe part of the reason why is I feel like to engage with people there, I feel like the pattern I see is that if content is more like the more emotionally ticking it is, triggering it is, like the better the engagement, and that a lot of times I feel like I see negative, critical, angry stuff performing better than just positive stuff. Not always. Like I said, you guys actually do great engagement on your posts, especially when they're just like, they're just a positive thing. Like I think it was right the last couple of days, you guys just put out a post about like how just we're hyped for Halo Infinite, right? Like that's it. And then hey, a lot of other people are, but generally speaking, I feel like the tweet you see is like, man, do these fuckheads know how to run competitive Halo? Like that's the tweet. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I see. So,
I think the burden that falls on Josh and I to make it, because I think the following we do get are the people that come to Sacred Icon. They're coming there because it is positive, because it is a place to talk about something you love without having to deal with all that crap. And the burden's on us to continue to keep that up, because I don't know if anybody notices just passing our Twitter, but like I run it in a very intentful way. Like when I make a tweet, I read every single reply every time. Every reply I've ever gotten, I always read. And I like if the reply it can even be negative as long as it's respectful. I'll like every single reply to let everyone know that I've read it, which seems to make people like I've seen it. I can't count how many times I've liked someone's response and then they follow me because they just like that I actually paid attention to it.
Right. Yep.
So I read them all. I like them all. And if somebody posts something super disrespectful or unfairly negative, I don't like it or I don't acknowledge it. And I've had people come in there and say things that initially were really hard for me to resist. Like first couple months, somebody come in and say, this account's run by 2, 3, 4, 3 shills. They'll eat up any shit that's laid down for them. And like in the beginning, it was like took all my power to not be like,
hey, fuck you.
But I came to learn that like if you don't reply to those people, you don't give them anything to work with, it just dies.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So then everything just stays positive. So.
No, well, that's why I brought it up. You're trying to be positive in what I consider, and like to bring it back. That previous example I said, these fuckheads don't know how to run a competitive scene, right? That kind of a tweet that I see like all the time.
Yeah.
Another way to phrase it, right, which I think is actually a good thing for somebody to say, is the kind of content that HCS is putting out is not very engaging right now. Like it's. It feels like HCS is being treated as an afterthought, and the content, and some content that could be interesting is blah 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 blah. I'll give also credit to people though, like when some of these same accounts, when stuff goes well, also do give it props. It's just like I think it is maybe a lot of times it's like I think they also know you have to say things a certain way to get them, like to get the engagement maybe that you're looking for. And you could say, I wish engagement, I wish that they would make more engaging content in HGS. Some things that I think would be interesting is la la la. That's not going to do as good as a tweet that says these fuckheads don't run HCS. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm kind of saying about the toxicity of Twitter for me personally, is that that's the kind of stuff that bubbles up. Were you going to say something, Potatoes?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the toxicity is not, like, even all in social media. You're playing, like, a game of Halo 5 SWAT, and you're just, like, someone gets on the mic and starts talking, and he's like, damn, this game's shit. Like, I hate this game. But, like, he's like, we should all just play Slayer, then I'll kick all your butts because SWAT's for losers. And then the next game you go to Slayer, and then some guy's like, oh, Slayer's for losers. The 340 doesn't know how to do anything. You have to go to Team Arena, and that's where you really play. And they're just, like, hating on the game inside the game. And it's just, like...
inside the game that they're Diamond 5 at and clearly have put some time into. Like,
yeah, if I truly hated something, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah, I think... man, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Getting back to that toxicity on Twitter and it just seems to be like sort of unfortunately like the reality of that platform to some extent.
That's what I was going to say is like you kind of have to make a sacrifice if you want to stay positive, because like you said already, Anthony, going negative, it gets you the hits right away.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like. In the beginning, when we started saying something like, wow, 343 can't do anything right, boom, it'll blow up or something, like that's funny. You made a poke at 343. But instead of intentionally say positive things over time. And now at this point in time, we've gained enough credibility that people want to actually just follow those things.
Right.
But it is so much easier just to be negative. I thought I did it respectfully, but I actually posted something that was kind of I guess you could see as negative the other day, and it took off really quick because it was negative. It was when the Xbox Live Gold was going to be $120 a year. So the tweet was like, when Halo Infinite is free to play, when playing Halo Infinite for free costs $120 a year, and it was Sergeant Johnson from Halo 2 going.
Say what? Yeah. I remember that tweet.
It was like immediately like 700 likes. And then they fixed it a few hours later. And I made a new tweet that was like, good on them. We're glad to see it, thank you and everything. I mean, I barely cracked up.
Yeah. Yeah. We covered it in a similar fashion. I posted a meme about it on Instagram, and then I posted a meme about them correcting it on Instagram. Props to I think our Instagram crowd is actually they generally seem to be pretty pro Xbox and stuff. So I think that was part of the appreciation there. But I feel part of the limitation of Twitter too. You guys actually do a lot of posts with images, which I think is great, because I think personally that's one of the reasons I, at least myself, don't enjoy Twitter as much. The words, and I think that's part of the reason why you need to lace them with more emotion, because it's one thing to text words is compared to on Instagram an image or a video. You know what I mean? Like it's different. It's in my opinion, the visuals provide a more opportunity for like a rich communication style. You can say more with an image or a video than you can with whatever 280 characters. And so I don't know. That's just, I feel like when you go to these different platforms, when you go to the absorb content for these different, I'll just use consistent terminology, these different fandoms on different platforms, they have different vibes, in my opinion. And the Twitter Halo vibe is just like, I wouldn't say like it's insanely negative, but it's negative. Like is the vibe I get. It's like more trying to focus on the problems. Like for example, armor coatings. When we made our post, we said could be bad or whatever, but we tried to have some fun with it. Like armor coatings on one hand could if you tell me that if, for example, if the system was every armor coating in the game was $10, okay, that's fucked up. Like that sucks. They said it wasn't. There's I don't know. It's this kind of like it's only a game for me personally angle that I took on it, and it's free to play. You're gonna have to. Unfortunately, yes, like give them some constructive feedback on how they could make that system better. But it's like this is the real world and things work. You can't, yes, just give me everything for free and let everything be for free. Like, unfortunately, there's some whatever trade-offs, and I don't know.
If you step back from your Halo fandom and you truly realize that Halo is not made specifically for you, you can start to see how the coatings aren't potentially. We don't know all the details right now, but
yeah.
So check the date if you're listening to this later once the game's already out. But you don't know if the coatings is necessarily a bad thing. Because here's the thing. So I've seen a lot of people say, well, I'd rather just pay more money for the game and not have coatings. I'd rather not have the multiplayer be free and pay more for the game and not have to worry about coatings. Okay, I understand that. I probably would too. But here's the thing. They're trying to make Halo appeal to as many people as possible to reach new fans. And we live in a time now where, and I can say this from experience, I used to, a couple years ago, I taught a middle school Sunday school class at church. And all the kids wanted to talk about was Fortnite and, those free-to-play games with the microtransactions. I work at a hospital now. I'm constantly walking past staff, nurses and whatnot that are talking about buying their kids V-Bucks for Fortnite or whatever. You got to understand, the things we liked and we thought were cool when we were kids, get an N64 cartridge, get a PS1 game, whatever, in that package with the cool instruction manual and all that stuff. That was cool to us because of the time. That is not kids that are 5, 10, 15 today. To them, what's really cool is having a game immediately available, downloadable, for free. They don't have to convince their parents or whatever. They can play it as long as they want, and then they can buy upgrades, whether it's cosmetics or skins or whatnot. So, on one hand, let's say Halo Infinite came out and it was exactly like traditional Bungie Halo, and there was no microtransactions, the multiplayer wasn't free, and it was good. Let's say it was Halo 3 level good. That's going to do well enough, but it's going to continue to just appeal to the original fan base. It's not going to grow.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So with Halo Infinite and its free to play multiplayer and the shaders, if they get an extra 10 million players because they took this route of having it, now Halo Infinite can sit alongside Apex and Fortnite and all these other games as these free to play things.
You know what? 100%. I personally feel that if Halo 5 would have launched free to play multiplayer also on PC, could still have like a solid population. Personally, I feel that game's got like some serious like skill mastery depth to it.
Well, Halo 5 kind of came right at the cusp.
Yeah, I agree.
This took off.
I agree.
All the free to play, this whole new market with the and Twitch and YouTube influences popularity of games more than anything at this point. I mean, you look at a game like Among Us, isn't that game 2 years old?
Yep. Yeah, right. It was out like for 2 years. Yep.
The Twitch streamers made it huge. So
Potatoes, you were gonna say something?
No.
Oh, you looked like you were. You looked like you were.
One of the things I was gonna say too about Halo 5, before you move away from that, is I don't know if either of you guys would agree with this or if anybody else listening has experienced this, but for me, as time's gone on and as I've like managed my expectations and I've like tried to be constructive of the games, even the things I hated the most, I've come to like a lot more. I still, to this day, would say Halo 5 has a poor story. That's really how I feel about it. But when I play Halo 5's campaign, I have a lot more fun now than I did when it came out. And I found to appreciate little intricacies of the campaign, things that, like Blue Team's first mission in Halo 5. Great mission, where you're on that ship and it's just fighting Covenant. Genesis was a cool planet. Exuberant Witness was a fun character.
I agree.
I can really just kind of, now we've had enough time, we've had enough separation from the disappointment. You take it for what it is.
I think that's such a big part of the Halo 5 campaign for me, and I thought about it a lot, over the years. Like, I feel like if I went into the game without the insane amount of hype that I had, I wonder what I would have thought. I don't think I remember so we played it right at launch, 10 p.m. our time, 12 p.m. Eastern, whatever the heck. And the first night we played through the first 6 missions. So we had just finished the Meridian arc. And I remember telling my wife, like, oh shit, it better start getting good. Cause we were that far in and I'm like, what? Like, something's not right about this. Like, it's just not like, I don't know. Again, I'm coming off of that hype, the truth, Hunt the Truth. The launch trailer for that with the Muse song, like, no one's gonna take me. I was like fucking rewatching that shit all at work. We were in a meeting and I was just watching that shit over and over again. I'm like, this is gonna be fucking awesome. Like, so that's a huge part of like how Halo 5 landed for me. Like, I was so hyped. Brittany's in chat saying too many times. Yeah, way too many times. I still get hyped watching that thing. And I think about it. If I didn't have that hype, I've always said, always, even when I played it, from my perspective, the Halo 5 campaign gameplay was way better than Halo 4. Way better than Halo 4. Yeah. In fact, I feel Halo 4 has one of the weakest gameplay campaigns of them all. I think the narrative is awesome. So Halo 5, that first night, like you're saying, that mission with Blue Team, there's one of my favorite parts is where you're like on top of like cargo crates that are suspended in the air and you're like shooting down at grunts and jackals and you're like jumping across things. You know what I mean? Yeah. There were some great parts gameplay wise in that campaign. That part at the end, after maybe breaking, where you're Osiris and you're running down the Guardian. That was badass, dude. That was awesome. I love the breaking.
Picture Halo 4's exact story and
with Halo 5 gameplay.
Halo 5's gameplay and its big environments. It'd be amazing.
It was. Hey, I'll be honest, a little. We were talking about it in the Discord the other day. I'm legitimately a little concerned that based off of the reception of Halo 5, they might like go backwards on the gameplay. I felt like the actual core gameplay of Halo 5 was so good, super different from the previous ones, but it was fun and it had depth. And I'm concerned, like you said about Halo 4, how would Halo 5's story have gone if people liked Halo 4? I wonder what they'll do. And I think the other unfortunate part about Halo 5 from a gameplay perspective is I think it took a while to really appreciate its depth. It wasn't necessarily immediate, and they updated it. They made the sandbox better. So Anyway, we'll see how Infinite is. Infinite by no means looked bad. One thing we're all saying when we initially watched the trailer is like, that game looks fun to freaking play. Like the shooting and stuff and the punch, like the way like pulling the grappling hook and throwing some shit at somebody. Like it just looked fun. You could feel it, you know, in the controller. You could feel what it like felt. Anyway, so
it's hard. It's got to be impossible for 343 to not be somewhat reactionary. And I think,
right.
And I don't actually blame them at all, but I think they've been more or less reactionary since they started. You know, because Halo 4 was a vision they had, and they put that game out, and then it got the bad feedback it did, and then Halo 5 seemed like a reaction to that, and then now obviously the 6 years we've had since Halo 5 is them going back to basics and really saying, like, how are we going to make a game that appeals to everyone, and them taking their time, and that's what Infinite's going to be. But, like, that's one of those situations where, like, you look back at when Bungie was doing Halo, and Bungie always kind of had this cavalier attitude of just, like, we're making the game we want. We don't give a crap what you want. And they just put out games, and for better or worse, whether you liked them or not, they came out with Bungie, how Bungie wanted them. And, you know, I think that is the best way to do it. But I can't expect 343 to be able to have that same
flexibility.
Because they're fans running a franchise, one of the most popular franchises in the world. They're essentially, in a sense, they're more corporate.
Right.
You know, and it makes me think of, like, once again, it's like I feel like Star Wars is the best thing for all comparisons in all of our conversations. But, like, you look at the Star Wars prequels, which even if all of us here like them, for a decade they were just
totally shit on. Yes,
for being absolute trash.
Yep.
And now, once you've seen, like, Disney picked up the rights, they made the sequel trilogy. Obviously, the sequel trilogy was very much trying to bring people back to how they felt with the original Star Wars. You know, they didn't talk about the prequels. They did real practical effects. They brought back the original cast. But now that it's all said and done, what do you see so many people saying? It's like, okay, well, the sequel trilogy really kind of just repeated the same shit we'd already seen.
Yep.
Did it not as well. And the prequels, for all the prequels' mistakes, it was something new and original.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, like I said, I hope, in a sense, I personally am a big fan of the art style change that has happened. Like, I'll be honest, even when I wasn't even, like, part of the online social media Halo community, like when Halo 4 came out, for example, the two things that really bugged me about the 343 Halos was the main thing, even though I really liked the music of Halo 4 for what it was, I didn't hear a single note of the old music. And the music, honestly, like, actually literally is the thing about Halo that I spend the most time with. I always got that soundtrack on. When I work, if I want to focus, the thing I put on is the Halo soundtrack. And to not hear... Yeah, I put on the Halo soundtrack.
Possible? Dude, I'm working, and, like, I'm just, like, sitting there, or I'm, like, trying to focus on something, and then I play it on the Halo soundtrack, and I'm like, shit, this is so sick. And I just, like, get so distracted from what I'm doing.
You could just have, especially the original trilogy, it's just, like, I think it's because I know it, honestly. I think this is the thing. I know him so good at this point that it just, like, fills in the part of my brain that's just trying to be distracted, and it's occupied with the soundtrack, you know? But that was a thing. That really was a thing. I remember that there's that one part in Halo 4 where you're, like, outside of the composer the station where everyone gets fried.
The Halo or Installation 03, like, base.
Yeah, and you know that Installation 03 is in the background, and for a moment, the monks are in the background. Like, you hear and I was like, oh, fuck, here it comes. Like, they've been saving it, you know? Here come the themes, and but not to say I didn't like it. I really liked the Halo 4 soundtrack and frequently listened to it, as well as the Halo 5. I have the Halo 5 soundtrack actually hanging over there.
See that? That's pretty cool.
I really like the new stuff. It's just that I was looking, Marty O'Donnell uses the term emotional equity that he builds with the themes. So like there was a theme, the never forget themes. Oh, holy shit. You play that thing and you want to cry wherever you are kind of a thing, those themes, I listened to them for 10 years, like over and over again. And when they weren't there, that really bothered me. I was like, oh man, that was a bummer. And yeah, some of the way things looked was also things. So personally, like I said, I'm not going to freak out if some of that stuff wasn't there. I obviously still thoroughly like the other ones, but those were elements of the recent 343 games that I felt that I was bummed about. Like, although in Halo 5, I was so surprised to go on to Twitter after Halo 5 and find out that everyone hated the level, the breaking. Like that second to last level, you're blue team and you're moving up towards Cortana. So you're like just fighting Prometheans and stuff. Yeah. During that level, the Trials plays, Kazuma's take on the Halo theme, and it's mixed with 117. It's the most fucking badass song ever. It's like, and you're going up that slide. And I that whole time I was just like, yes. Like I was like, it finally came back. The theme was back, and you had to like pull off these moves where you're like sliding around the covers, picking up incineration cannons, just like blasting the shit out of Prometheans. It was so badass to me. There's the music for me just has like such a huge part of the Halo experience. So that at least in Halo 5 was really brought back. And I cannot tell you how much I've listened already to the 3 songs they've released for Infinite, which are so good, man. All of them. Oh man.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's always hard to tell what grabs at certain parts of the fan base, because there's a certain amount of things in Halo that the mainstream always wants.
Right.
I think the soundtrack is part of that. Like if I find the most and I mean no offense to anybody listening, but if I find the most bro dude Halo person out there I can find who just plays Halo and they don't even know the lore, they're just playing it. They want competitive multiplayer, they want the dope classic music, and they want to blow stuff up and shoot aliens. I mean, it's pretty simple. So whereas people I use Haruspis as an example. Halo 4 really that landed for him in a huge way.
Right.
That game is not only is it lore heavy, and it ties into side lore really well. It's different. It's very different soundtrack setting, the art style. It was so different, but in a way that just fit him perfectly. Mm-hmm. And even though we love it, for the mainstream, it was just and it's interesting because I actually see a decent amount of people today still say, well, Halo 5 was bad, but at least it wasn't 4. I do see that a lot still too. And a lot of times I see it seems like 4 is seen as the most different one, even though, I think most people would agree 4's campaign was a lot better, the story. Would you agree, Anthony? Halo 5, it feels closer to something like Halo 3 than 4 did, I think. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you mean.
It's more traditional.
Well, and even just using the example I just said, I felt like Halo 5 did make an effort to pull some of that nuance back. I mean, remember coming into Halo 4 and I can't remember what it's called on the soundtrack, but that with the Requiem. Is it Requiem that's in the background? I loved it. And there's one of my favorite songs in the Halo 4 soundtrack is Arrival, and it plays on the last mission when you're sort of going around the platforms trying to activate them to get to the didact at the very end. Mm-hmm. And when it came on, because Arrival had been in the Mountain Dew app, I don't know if you played this one, but there was like a Mountain Dew King of the Hill. You could go to 7-Elevens and you could like get points for your Spartan and stuff. Like it would tie to your Spartan. So Arrival, it was 117 was the music that was in there. So when you're in the broadsword and 117 is playing, it's not to say the music was bad. It was really badass at points. It just wasn't. I was just waiting. It didn't even have to be at those parts. I'm not saying like they should have done the theme there. It's not what I mean. Just like I was waiting for them to tickle the things I was familiar with, and Halo 4 just was really going to be something different, you know. And there's actually those stories of there's the Vidocs, there's some blogs. There's the Vice article about the history of Halo that talks about like they wanted to go way farther with it. Like they really wanted to make it different. And at the same time, Josh Holmes said they had a build pretty early on of Halo 4 that they felt was like essentially Halo 3.5. Like it was Halo 3 faster, didn't have like any other crazy stuff. It was a conscious decision that they really wanted to go somewhere different. And from a creative standpoint, really respect that. Like from a fan, that's the thing I have with Halo is like I have two angles of looking at it. There's there's really like three angles. There's like the old nostalgic kid who played the original trilogy in there, you know. Then there's the new experiences guy, and then there's like the developer perspective too, and thinking of it that way. So it's always a mix of things. I don't know. Infinite right now, it just looks like it might hit them all, you know, like for me personally. So
yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who feels like thinks this way, but to me at this point, I'm okay with what they want to give me, you know. Like, if they want to give me another Halo 4, heck, if they want to give me another Halo 5, I know some people are going, "Whoa, Brian, what are you talking about?" But like I have Halo 1, 2, and 3. They're not going anywhere. I have all these games are special to me for different reasons, and like, of course, I want the new one to be as best as it can be. I would love to just be floored and have it be one of my favorites. But like, you know, all those like that nostalgia and that original love I have is based in the original Bungie stuff, and it doesn't take away at all from. It enhances the 343 stuff, honestly. But I don't need, you know, I used to be this way growing up, but I see it on Twitter all the time. I'm not like this anymore, but people are hanging on every little detail about Halo all the time. And you can see the emotion in their tweet as to how much it matters to them. Like, you'll see somebody say, "Oh, the only thing I gotta have in Halo Infinite is the Didact's got to show up sometime, or I hope they kill off Locke, or they just say something." And it's like, if they don't get that, they're gonna be really disappointed. Or this map has to come back, and it's like, man, I did that for so long, like pretty much like childhood through high school years, like just hoping for every little thing to be there. And the disappointment, man, it's not worth it. So now I'm just my expectations really level. That's why when the Infinite trailer came out, or the gameplay demo for Infinite came out, you ever listened to our reaction to it? I was super stoked. Because I had really, honest to God, tailored my expectations low, because I just learned to do that. And then when everybody said the graphics sucked, I was shocked because I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I didn't notice and play. Potatoes, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like completely for sure. Is like when people saw the gameplay trailer and going back to when you said Halo 5's bad, but at least it's not as bad as Halo 4. I was thinking about that because I just had this conversation with one of my friends. He was like, I was talking to him about Halo 5, and he was like, Halo 5 was trash. And he said exactly what you said. He's like, but at least it wasn't bad as Halo 4. Yeah, and this kid has never even installed a Halo to his Xbox. He's just reading what people are saying on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. So I was like, people, and then they hate it on the graphics because they have to find something wrong because they have to prove to their friends that, or read something that someone else said to prove that Halo sucks, because that's what they're hearing from everyone else. They're not experiencing it for themselves. So that's like what's really like makes me like mad about all this toxicity going around everywhere, because like it just like making all the Halos seem like trash because people are saying random crap when they love the game.
Yeah, it's tempting not to go along with the crowd. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not cool to say Halo 5 is fun or Halo 5 is good or like Halo 4 is my favorite Halo. It's not quote unquote cool.
Yeah.
You know, so people want to be like
Yeah.
some people actually like the stuff and they end up convincing themselves they hate it because it's popular.
Well, so I have we have a dev meeting in 12 minutes. So as if you will, as maybe the final part of our conversation, I actually wanted to ask you basically what we're just talking about right now. Halo Infinite's coming out. I'm going to make shit up. Let's say November 15th for the anniversary, right? How are you going to experience it? You have a bit, I don't know. You guys put out content every day on Twitter. Like you're always tweeting. But to this very point, I have myself thought of how I'm going to go dark or not on social media because it's like I said, I wonder if I would have perceived the breaking differently if I would have read that everyone hated it. You know what I mean? Like, would I have been looking for what they were hating? You know what I mean? Like, if nothing else, you have it in your head. So when you're going to there, you're at least going to think, these people said this sucked. It's not necessarily going to make you for sure think it sucks, but you might start looking for things that are wrong. You know what I mean? Instead of just sort of experiencing it vanilla, like holistically kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen is when it's getting close to Halo Infinite, Josh is going to nope out. You're not going to see Josh at all on Twitter or anything. Probably he's going to go dark because Josh hates spoilers, hates them, can't stand them. But me, I'm going to hold true to Sacred Icon. I'm going to be posting every day. I'm not going to do anything different. And honestly, I don't want to be spoiled either. But like, I'm still going to be on there. And I'm still, I mean, even the day of. And the thing is, I don't know how we're going to do it, but like, I want to have a podcast out as soon as possible about our thoughts on the game, you know? So, it'll be an interesting time because for multiple reasons. Because one, I mean, our Sacred Icon's entire existence has been waiting for this game. You know, it was announced when we started, and it's still not out now.
Yep.
You know, we thought we'd already have played it and been past it at this point, but it got delayed. It's gonna be really cool to see what that era is like, and I hope that once that game comes out, we don't have to go through a 6-year hiatus again. And I know they have the 10-year plan.
I'm actually so excited about the DLCs. I just think like if they pull like a Destiny style like drop every year ish, where you have some like DLC bundle with like some campaign of telling some new story. Oh God, that sounds perfect, man. Like that's what I want. Like give me like a mini campaign every year and a half. Oh fuck, hell yes, you know.
What if you so I'll ask both you guys if you could choose. You get to choose. It's like a Sacred Icon question. If you could choose one campaign DLC, what would you choose it to be about? Choose anything.
Potatoes, you go first.
Probably wherever Aatrox is or the Ark. See something on there with red team.
Holy shit! Yeah. If you went to the Ark in a first-person shooter and you fucking fought the Banished with red team, holy crap, dude! I think I'd have to take another week off work for that one.
You got Anthony excited there.
No, that would be cool. It just does not fall in the realm of possibility for me in my head. I don't think they're going to make that narrative jump. I feel like the way Shadows of Reach we talked about in the podcast set things up is like you can have a story over there. You know, you have the Keepers going over there. There's the Banished and there's the Spirit of Fire. You can start to develop this like side spot for stories too. I think that's a cool opportunity. There's no need to shove them together so fast. Yeah. In fact, maybe they're building towards an end game kind of a thing. You know, I'm not sure that because holy shit, you get a situation where you're on the Ark with the Didact, with Aatrox and the Banished, with Red Team, the Spirit of Fire, and then Chief and shit fly through a portal, and then who knows? You get the freaking Flood in there. That's like I'll pay $300 for that game, you know. Like I think the DLC. Go ahead.
You got to be picturing now like Master Chief like going to take down some unstoppable villain, and then suddenly like through a portal, blue team and red team shows up, and it's like on your left.
No, dude. Oh my God. The thing I want so bad that I thought this was part of my hype for Halo 5 is I just want like some almost Avengers style blue team being badass. Like it just felt like from my perspective, I was thinking, oh shit, you're going to get like some crazy, like actually the way the Halo 5 starts with Osiris, something like, I don't know, as badass in a way as that. Like the way I loved how they did it with Blue Team, like they're methodical, they just get the job done and everything. But I was just waiting for something, I don't know, like even more bombastic with Blue Team. I think that would be the first thing I'd want is like some Blue Team thing. But I just think it would be so cool to have an borderline horror-y kind of DLC where you're just like, you find out some flood shit on Zeta Halo and you're just like, ideally it's something we don't even know right now. Like not even in the Greg Bear books. You find some wrinkle about the flood out that is just so screwed up and you do it in like a Forerunner facility that's like no one knows about right now. Like it's not a new thing, not a Greg Bear thing, a totally like new Forerunner and flood kind of a thing in a sort of stealthy, maybe even like horror-y kind of vibe to it. Ooh, that sounds cool to me.
That sounds amazing.
For sure.
Now you got me thinking like maybe instead of terminals, think if like there's places on the ring in Halo Infinite where you can like activate a panel or something and it takes you into gameplay 100,000 years ago.
Oh, dude, that would. I mean, I would love a Forerunner DLC. Like what was it? It's that short story in Fractures about post firing of the Halo rings. Have you ever read that one?
Yeah, it's with Born Stellar and Shade to Green or Chant to Green. Chant to Green.
Oh my God, if you gave me that one. But also, no, you know what I'm thinking of is Renegades. There's a part in Renegades. I don't know if did you read Renegades?
No, I haven't completed it. No.
Okay, I don't know if I like how much I want to say, but like, God, there's a part where they go to a Forerunner planet. That's vague enough, I think. And they talk about, they're trying to do something there, and they do stuff. It's not bombastic. It's not a bombastic super fight scene. It's more from like an environmental and like world standpoint and like lore history and seeing, I think, some of that visualized of what has happened in the past that was just like so cool. By the way, I personally feel Renegades was a better book than Shadows of Reach, personally. So if you like Shadows of Reach, Renegades was like, it was so good. I think if you did something like that, it's more of like an exploratory and actually visualizing the Forerunner stuff that happened. So like kind of like what you're saying, except I think what I'm trying to say is instead of going back in time, you'd be like stumbling upon remains of things, if that makes sense.
You gotta hydrate.
Oh, I do have to hydrate. Twitch chat. So I don't know. Anybody else got any thoughts on that?
Not really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from just that conversation that they made the right choice with Halo Infinite being a 10-year project, because we can name one a year easy now. You got a Diadac DLC, a blue team DLC, a red team DLC, a Forerunner DLC. I mean, yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to it all. I hope that I would just like to see, and this is not a diss, I would like to see them really stick with that plan of 10 years, because they had the plan with the Reclaimer trilogy, and then they came out and said it was going to be the Reclaimer saga, and then they came out and said, well, Infinite's going to kind of sum up the Reclaimer saga, and then it's going to be 10 years. Let's stick, as long as provided Infinite lands the plane and is a great base game, let's do that. Let's do the 10-year thing. I'm not dying to wait for a whole new sequel. I'm not.
It's just not the way of the future, in my opinion, either. From a technical standpoint, as well, it's not in their best interest. It's a waste of time and resources to completely be gutting and redoing stuff every freaking 3 to 5 years. AAA games are continuing to take more and more time because the scope increases. I think you're going to see some advent of technology that helps them Like you're going to be help. You know how Minecraft procedurally generates their biomes and stuff, and it works for Minecraft. What if you could somehow procedurally generate? I've had conversations with that actually with somebody who works at 343 about this on Twitter, where they were saying, the future feels like building tools that can automatically procedurally generate content that right now requires artistic people to actually make it. Like, can you generate armors, not have like the pipeline of you still would have like concept art and stuff like that, but could you throw things into an algorithm that like can get so close to feeling out biomes in Halo Infinite? Like, we're going to have that, right? We're going to be on a ring. There's going to be parts that are snowy. There's going to be parts or whatever. Could you like, instead of having to the team craft all those spaces, can you build tools that automatically generate some of that stuff? And the future is it's always has been. The future has always been trying to shorten those iteration cycles, right? And like put content out faster. And that's so much, in my opinion, of why Fortnite has been successful. They just like constantly pushing updates and doing stuff to that game, and games that can do that. That's the future. There's so much good entertainment out there these days and it's so easily accessible between video games and movies and stuff like that. Your content, your game has to be like the friction, the friction to get into your experience has got to be low, getting back to your free to play point. And it's got to be regularly updated. It's got you got to keep bringing out new stuff for people. That's the world we live in now.
I mean, pretty much everybody's like, the dog from Up nowadays, squirrel.
Yeah.
Because there's content. You blink your eye and there's a whole bunch of new shows and movies.
And games, dude. Like, especially I think I saw your last
really understood. You there?
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. I said I've never really understood the fascination with wiping the engine, because if you told me right now that they were going to release a new Halo game that was just using the Halo 3 engine and assets, if it was done well, I'd be freaking stoked.
Yeah, I mean, from a technical perspective, I can envision that the way things have evolved over the last 20 years, in this case, the way like the new kinds of techniques and styles of assets and all, like, there's just shit that exists now in the technical space that just was a dream 20 years ago. And there's parts of those engines, like it gets to software development and how complicated it is. The software's so complicated. It's like you think from the outside, you think, how hard can it be, for example, to change the length? You know how in Halo 5 you can only put like 3 little characters for your thing, and it used to be 4 or whatever. It was one or the other. Like it changed. How hard can that be to fix? Oh, well, that little change involves a change in this part of the UI, blah, 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 blah. That needs to go through these testing cycles. Oh, and it turns out that for some freaking reason, the code that's responsible for rendering those 3 characters was changed in Halo 5 and is also used by the Ghost rendering code. And oh, fuck, we don't want to push something that breaks the ghosts and how they render. And that's why we can't change the 3 strings over here. Like, that shit happens all the time especially in legacy systems, because what usually happens is especially in the video game industry where you have contractors constantly coming on, is you come on, you're trying to meet a deadline, you guys cook up, you're only going to be there for a year, right? You're trying to help the game get out the door. You need to absorb the code base as fast as you can, as best as you can, to get your job done. But realistically, what that means a lot of times is you don't actually understand the whole gut of it. It's way too complicated and it takes too much time. You don't have that time. You just need to understand what you think you need to know, and then you make your change. So you build it's like a monster that you keep slapping tentacles onto. And the problem is that eventually you're trying to make a change. This is what they were actually saying about the problems they had with Halo 5 not being able to add asset skins, is that the iteration times through the engine were just so slow because of how it was built that it didn't make sense. And there was actually like memory limitations limitations. It's like we should have more weapon skins. Well, they couldn't because the way that Halo 5 was distributed was if for them to include more, it would mean like a new chunk of memory needed to be included in the package and blah. It's always so much more complicated than it seems on these things. And there's, especially now that like Unreal Engine and Unity have gotten like, there's these first part, like there's a big technical company in Epic Games that's basically working full time on making a badass gaming engine. Like, it's just back in the day, Bungie, their whole studio wasn't working on the engine, and Epic has way more people than most studios have, working there. It's like, it's just the reality of how these things evolve. I hopefully, and my guess is what they're doing is with that in mind is like they're trying to rip out the parts of the old Halo engine that are most responsible for slowing them down on these iteration cycles, on being able to put out content fast. They're trying to put in new stuff, and I'm sure it's especially. I don't think people can perceive how difficult elements of that are to transition from not remote working conditions to remote working conditions in COVID. There's a lot of stuff that has to change in certain aspects and how your builds are executed, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, I can definitely see if they're dealing with remnants of those old engines, why there'd be incentives to change it up technically and to be able to accommodate things for the future. Yeah. And maybe they thought, hey, we're taking a hiatus now. This is the time to do it, Yeah,
for sure. And I think the better we understand those kind of challenges you're talking about, the less critical we would be.
I agree.
On the final product. It's just so sad when you see somebody who's put 3 to 5 years of their life into a project, and then some whiny fan on Twitter says, you purposely ruined my game by being a lazy ass or something, or
what are you guys even doing?
Or you just didn't care. It's like, man, this guy gave like 3 to 5 years of his life, did everything he could to make it the best game he could.
And realistically, you know how many times that animator, that artist, that developer's execution of something is also intertwined with like other priorities, like for those who are listening and are interested in actually hearing about some actual accounts of this, I encourage you to go on YouTube and search for GDC videos. For example, if you're a Halo fan, search like GDC Halo, and you'll see conference talks that are presented by various parts of the 343 team, blah, blah, blah. I remember there's this one guy for Halo 4 who's a technical artist, and he was talking about the shaders are this code that executes for assets that are rendered in the scene. And he was talking about how they had this one shader code that was super bad, like performance-wise. It was very costly to render. And he knew of ways to bring down the performance requirements and make it much more efficient code. However, he was working, I think he even calls out, like he was working with Sparth, and Sparth told him, don't you dare touch those shaders because it looks great. Like he loved how the rocks looked. It was the rocks. That part in Halo 4 where you first see the crawlers and they're like climbing up the walls? Yeah. It was one of the rocks in those scenes that he was talking about. It was these shaders that were inexpensive. So he told Sparth, I bet you I'll rework this code and you won't tell the difference. And so what he did is like he reworks the code and he puts 2 rocks in front of him in the scene. One is fixed, one is not, and Sparth says I can't tell the difference. He's like, got it, like, and that's how he gets in. But like, that's just to say that I'm sure there are times where you have a situation like that, and unfortunately, the compromise is one where the art team, not because they're evil, but because their priority is a beautiful game and true to the thing or whatever, they say like, we can't do that. And so what ends up happening is maybe you can't have the 100 rocks you wanted. You can only have 20, And then so the fans are like, what the fuck are you guys doing with these sparse? Where are all my rocks? Why didn't you put more rocks? Well, okay, you want to know why? Like, and there's this whole thing. So anyway, that's part of the reason, for what it's worth, on our studio, especially as we get closer to our game and we start releasing content, we would love to put out content like that, right? Like straight, I think there's definitely an amount of constructive criticism that you could give to not just 343, AAA studios in general about being more transparent about how these things work. Because one, I think people find it interesting. And then two, I think it brings out and makes it more clear, like, that humans are working on this game with a really complex, reality of the bureaucratic and all that kind of prioritization. Sometimes it's not even like malicious. It's just it's a really complicated thing to make. There are deadlines. There are priorities. Decisions are made off of things that you didn't even know would be considered. And like visuals, visibility into that stuff, I think really helps, like you're saying. And like that sprint Dividoc for Halo 5, I thought was really cool.
That was great. Endless compromise in game development.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm telling you, I've worked on software, right? I'm a full-time software engineer. I'm not going to say I've necessarily built a satellite that shoots up into the moon, to the moon or whatever necessarily, but we've worked on some really crazy shit at our job. And games are just so much more complicated from the perspective of it's not just code, it's integrating, like, what makes something fun. What might make something fun is that you change the gravity on one element of something in the scene. Like, that thing just needs to behave differently. Okay, well, doing that affects this and affects that and affects this. And then what ends up happening is you get to a point where, like, oh, we're so happy with it. And then you find out, oh, shit, the sound we're using for it, like, gets muddied when the soundtrack is playing. Oh, fuck, and, like, you have to do that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just, there's so many things, it's crazy. So
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing we get the content we do. I mean,
no, dude, it's something I'm trying to be more cognizant of. It's just such a miracle that these games get out the door and that it's such an impressive feat of engineering, these multiplayer games where people are playing, connecting together around the world with such, like, and it works so well, blah, blah. It's really legitimately, like, that's some crazy shit going on.
I'm going to say, and the last thing I'll say is that something I've said constantly on Sacred Icon is it's never bad to just be respectful. It's just never, like, you're never going to go wrong by being respectful. Like,
never
even if you
hurts.
don't like a thing, you don't like a person, you want to voice your distaste, still do it respectfully. There's nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose there.
Yep. 100%.
For sure.
Potatoes, any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Just Halo's toxic about Halo. Like, if you love Halo, you're going to be toxic. If you hate Halo, you're going to be toxic. It just...
But if you want to be positive, Sacred Icon... Go.
Going. Like, it's always going to be toxic, but I encourage you guys to be positive, because if you're positive about Halo, you're going to end up loving it no matter what. There's some things you hate, but focus on the things you like.
Hey,
there you go.
And if you're looking for a place to go, I kind of finished it with some plugs here. Check out the Sacred Icon Halo Twitter. They're at Sacred Icon Pod. Is it
Best
Sacred Icon Halo Pod?
No, we changed it about a month or two ago.
At Sacred Icon Pod.
Yep.
Okay, all one word. Check them out on Twitter. You can find their podcast. Sacred Icon Halo is the name of the podcast. You can find it on all the major podcast directories. So whatever you listen on, just search up. But also check out. Do you have a link to your Discord and Twitter? Like, how can people find your Discord?
Well, you can't. I guess you can't search a Discord until you have like
Right.
7,000 members or something. So it's actually in our banner on Twitter at the top banner.
Cool.
It's, the invite link is there.
So if you find them on Twitter, as with the handle we just told you, follow the link in their bio. And their Discord is like legitimately filled with a lot of people who are excited, happy about Halo. And I mean, there's also normal conversations with armor coatings and stuff. Like, people converse about negatives too. It's not like phony positive. But if you're just looking if you feel like you've gone to Reddit, you've gone to other places, you can't really find people who I don't know, enjoy Halo like you do, I'd strongly encourage you to follow them there. You can also follow us. Yeah, you can also join our Discord as well if you're our fan. If you're our fans and you're listening to this and you want to jump into Halo conversation and you didn't even know we had a Halo channel, we have one. And a lot of the guys that you will see talking in that channel have all jumped over as well to Sacred Icon Halo. So there's some places on Discord for you to go check out if you're looking for it. What else, Brian? Would you want to say anything? How people can find you?
I mean, if anybody wants to email us, you can email us at sacrediconpodcast@gmail.com. My co-host is Josh. He's at Jovial Joshy. I'm at Bryansbane. Yeah, I mean, just check out the Twitter, check out the podcast, write in your questions. We love to interact with the community, and we just everybody's invited to Discord. We're just trying to be like an exciting, enthusiastic place to come talk about Halo, especially as we get closer to Infinite. We usually plug in Discord with our Major Nelson GIF all the time about how he thought it would be cool, and it was cool. So we'll plug that and just try to get people in there. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, guys, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Certainly not the last time. Certainly not the last time. Maybe one time we'll sneak Josh on, that busy son of a gun.
Exactly. And I need to get you on a podcast where Alex Haruspis is around, because I know you're a fan.
Oh yeah, I would love to talk to Alex. It's just, when somebody puts, for those that are listening, we're gonna plug Haruspis. She's not even on here. Alex Haruspis. It's at Haruspis, I think. HARS HRUSPIS. Haruspis.
HARUSPIS.
Yeah. He's put a lot of time. First of all, he's an intelligent dude. And in addition to that, he's put a lot of time into breaking down his thoughts. And also, I would say the structure and the elements from a narrative and writing perspective of not just Halo 4, like we talked about before, but just like a ton of Halo material through the years. He's got great blog posts. And you can catch him, like Josh was just saying, the place I would first recommend is to go listen to the Sacred Icon Halo episodes with him on. They talk about Halo 4 and stuff. On top of that, he's from England. He's got this bitchin' British voice. Like, he's totally should get into voice acting. So,
yeah, you should hear his Emperor Palpatine impression.
Actually, I think somebody tweeted it, and it was really good. I think somebody did. I think it might have been him. Anyway, when somebody puts that amount of time and effort into articulating the things he did, and I don't know. It's hard to articulate things well. I think it's maybe easier for some people or others. So I really respect when somebody puts a lot of time and effort into doing it. And really, in that case, it was just because like he loved it and wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I've told him several times on the podcast that the reason I found him is because I played Halo 4. I thought the game was dope. I went online. Everyone was saying it was crap, and I was like flabbergasted. And eventually, that led me to finding the Haruspis blog,
right?
Where what Alex does,
yeah, me too.
He doesn't just say, this game's great or this game sucks or whatever. He goes, I like this game, and let me break down for you the angle I'm coming from and why I liked it, and here's my approach and my perspective. So even if you don't agree with him at the end, you're like, you can completely see his thought process.
Right.
It's brilliant.
Well, and he had a really good set of articles that actually helped me to chill out a bit about Halo 5 when Halo 5 came out, because he actually, on those set of articles, he was critical about it, but it's probably like the best example I can think of somebody trying to be constructive about their criticism of it, and while still definitely communicating disappointment. So check him out. There you go. Herb's a plug for the.
He'll take it.
Yeah. And as everybody always knows, you can check us out at kokoalaentertainment.com. There you have links to all our social media, including the Discord we referenced, blah, blah, blah. So until next time, we usually been also, just the last thing I'll say, if you've stuck around this long into the podcast, we've been playing Halo on Fridays and on the weekend on streaming on Twitch. So for sure, if you're looking for a Halo crew, join the Discord and in the Halo channel. The dudes are actually pretty frequently running games together. So cool.
Sweet. Keep it sacred, guys.
There it is. All right. Until next time, thanks, stream, for chilling out and talking in chat. We will see you guys next time. Thanks, Potatoes, for the sub. Potatoes subbed in the middle of the stream.
Dude, I got distracted at the
Oh,
I was subbing.
Dinner's ready. Okay, right on. All right, guys. Hasta la vista, everybody.
All right.
Thank you very much. I'll kill the stream. Buenas noches. Shout out to all our patrons, especially our Koala Manjaro subscribers, Sand Squid, Marcus the OK, I Got Your Potatoes, Carter Johnson, and to our Koala-tacular subscribers, thank you guys so much for your unbelievable support. If you'd be interested in supporting us on Patreon, I know you get a ton of stuff with your benefits. You get a free sticker of your corresponding tier when you sign up. You get a free sticker every 3 months if you're in the Koala-tacular or Koala Manjaro, and you get free merch every 6 months if you're in Koala Manjaro, and alongside patron game night, behind the scenes content access, music content, all kinds of stuff. It's easy to sign up. There's a link in our bio for the Patreon. Again, it helps our studio so much if you sign up. Thank you again.